No, no, I'm
Okay.
ready. I'm
Welcome
ready.
back, everyone, to the second episode of our Looks Like a TV Show spin-off podcast. I'll start again by reminding everybody that since this is in the very early stages, please continue to let us know if you're interested in us continuing these TV episodes when we're actually watching TV shows. Obviously, like I said last week, we're going to be doing this the whole way through for the studio at minimum. This week, we are talking about the third episode of the studio since two episodes came out last week. So this one will be a little bit quicker. I think I want to start. Well, first, I want to start by apologizing for something that I said last week because on this week's episode, I will say Catherine Hahn kind of won me over a little bit. I thought the whole
Interesting.
thing
She's doing a lot in this
she's
episode.
do no, but I genuinely okay, and it's not to say that I didn't sometimes laugh in the first two episodes, but like almost everything she did this episode landed for me and like got a like at the very minimum like a giggle out of me, but like a real genuine laugh like a couple times, and I was like, okay, fine, she's funny. I was like, it's actually funny this time. Like the first episode, it threw me off a little bit. Like tonally, I don't know if it totally matched. The second episode, not as much of a factor. And then this episode, I was like, okay, she's being funny. Like it's I'm on board now. So I do want to apologize for saying that I did not like her character. I guess I kind of like her character a little bit more now after this third episode.
She's
Um,
doing crazy Zennial or like Zillennial
yeah,
like code switching here. She's like she's saying like I don't even know like what she says specifically because I watched this episode not immediately right before we started recording, but she's doing like no word, bro. You gotta fucking tell him.
yeah,
It's like
yeah. I think she
no,
says,
dog. You gotta let him know. And it's like
yeah,
okay.
and that's what like I don't know. I mean, not to say that like
I got a
people
meeting
like
with the
that.
D'Amelios after this.
Not to say that people don't that some person like that doesn't exist in these spaces. But like in the first episode, it just threw me off so much, and I was not into it. And now I'm like, okay, you got me a little bit. Like I thought it was kind of funny. The
You
other
were
thing I
charmed
will
by
say,
Catherine
I was
Hahn.
charmed. Yeah, I was charmed a little bit. The other thing I will say about this episode, and this is also true for anybody who's thinking about watching this show, terrible episode to watch if you've never seen A Beautiful Mind. If you're somebody who's never seen A Beautiful Mind, do not watch this episode of TV.
Yeah, that's like a one of the like through line like joke
Yeah.
plot points is
Is that
just
they're
about
just
the
spoiling all of the movie, which is like
yeah, yeah.
totally justifiable for the show because the movie is like 20 years old. But if you just so happen to have not seen the movie and you go into this episode like blindly not knowing that, then you're just gonna have the whole movie ruined for you. Um,
I think
so something
it's
to keep in mind.
yeah, so and we say that because this episode is about Ron Howard. Ron Howard,
Yeah,
similar to how the first episode was about
Scorsese.
It was like also setting up the whole thing, but like really like kind of the plotty plot part of the episode was about Martin
Yeah,
Scorsese. This one is about Ron Howard, which is funny
yeah,
because Ron Howard tourism is kind of like uh a point of discussion, right? Where
sure.
people, because you know, like auteur theory. Okay, God, we're fucking nerds, dude. But like, so like auteur theory
We're doing
already.
movie podcasting on the TV pod again.
So like auteur theory already is kind of like a controvert. I think it's like less so now, right? But it has been always been like this controversial topic where it's like, oh, like how much is a film like the parts of its collaborations and like the army of people that worked on it, right, coming together, and how much of the film is one writer writing a novel, one painter making a painting, right? How much is it like the director just like controlling the piece, right? And Ron Howard is kind of an interesting filmmaker to do auteur theory on because he is kind of like a studio journeyman, you know, who
Yeah,
just like picks up a lot of projects and seems to just like do a good job being a director on it. Not to say that he isn't like obviously interested in specific themes and stuff. Neither of us are Ron Howard experts or even like
sure.
particularly huge fans of. Not to say that we dislike him, but
Yeah, no, I
uh
definitely don't dislike him. I also have not seen nearly enough Ron Howard movies.
right.
I don't have any problems with Ron Howard as it
Neither
stands.
do
I
I.
will
Yes.
say And kind of there's a couple of notes that I wrote down and like big things I want to talk about. I think the biggest thing, and I hate to do it, but it almost feels like there's no other choice, is to do what you already did, which is compare it to the Scorsese episode. Because like on a plot level, it's not really much different. Like it is essentially the same or a very similar episode of television, but replacing Scorsese with Ron Howard. And one point I'll make
which I
is that I
like.
think I think Ron Howard's quite funny in the
Yes.
episode. I will say that. But my larger point is that I don't think it's as good simply because I'm worried that I'm going to get tired of this pretty fast.
Oh,
Like,
see,
is
it's
this
so funny. I was kind of like, you know how I was pretty skeptical, like in our first podcast, when I was tired, so I wasn't doing my best podcast face, but I was pretty skeptical, and I was like, oh, I don't know, like it's not the kind of thing I would normally watch. This episode kind of won me over because it's just like even more so than the Scorsese episode, which is was almost a whole hour long and very plotty with lots of characters. This one is like it's literally the whole episode is about Seth Rogen has a note that he has to give to Ron Howard. The episode's called The Note. He
the
has a
note?
note that he has to
Yeah.
give to Ron Howard for his new film, and he doesn't want to give it. And that's the whole thing. That's the whole episode. And Ron Howard is there
Yeah.
acting. He has like a big scene moment. He has a lot of lines. That's awesome. If every episode is about a different director that Seth Rogen has to be
Sure.
awkward
Okay.
around, and the director is like acting and stuff, it's like that's cool,
Yeah.
man. That's a cool like there's no other show like that. There's no, you know what I mean? That's
No,
cool.
that's
But
a good point, I think. And I think like if you keep bringing in familiar faces that are very clearly having fun with it, like I'm not totally going to get bored of that. I mean, I got excited when Ron Howard showed up. Like as soon as he showed up, I was like, "Oh, this is fun." And then like he was fun for the whole episode. I mean, it's like you said where he's playing an even bigger role because it's a more focused episode in this than Scorsese was in his episode.
right.
And I do think like the other aspect of it that's kind of fun. Obviously, this is not intentional. This is just the nature of like these are people who are actively working in Hollywood like year over year. But like it it's fun how much stuff is like just lining up with real life where like the Scorsese episode was very clearly like similar conversation and like the movie that he pitched was very similar to Killers of the Flower Moon, and now they're like doing this Ron Howard episode as Ron Howard has a movie coming out like in a few months. So it's just like
Yeah.
funny that the episode kind of works as promo even though when they shot it it probably wasn't intended to be that. Um but
Unique thing about this episode too, speaking of this Ron Howard movie that they're talking about, is we see kind of like a significant chunk, not really significant, but like we see a lot of scenes or like moments from the fake Ron Howard movie they're talking about.
yes, we do.
That movie looks kind of sick. It looks
It
kind of
looks pretty
sick.
fun.
It looks kind of fucking sick. Oh,
They're not doing a
I'm
bad
like,
they're not doing a bad job convincing me that the movies they're making are real movies. Like even in the second episode with the Oneer, I was like, I believe that this is a real movie. I felt that
they're
way
obviously like
again with the Ron Howard movie.
exaggerated ideas of real
Yes.
movies, right? But
Yes.
it's
But in the sense that like because the thing is and again, I hate to keep making this reference, but it is so obviously the exact point of reference to make is that like in Entourage, one of the funny things about that show is that they often show scenes of movies that Vinny is in or like stuff that he does and you're just like that looks like shit. Like that is not supposed to be a good
yeah.
movie. And so it's funny that like in this, I very much believe, and not to say like that about Entourage, because some of Entourage is very true to real life. Like that was part of the goal. But I do think it's one of the strong points of this show so far that they are making me believe that the sets are real. Obviously, it helps to bring in big directors every episode, like well-known directors who
I'm so
have
excited for the
done
Zack
good
Snyder
work.
episode.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, well, the other thing I want to talk about is the actors because big
Anthony Mackie,
big
also
one.
a main
Yeah, big
character
one
in
in this
this. Yes.
episode is Anthony Mackie. The smaller one is like the tiny little cameo when they're showing Ron Howard's movie from Dave Franco when he's like yelling when he gets in the cab, which I was like, okay, that's funny. Because like the Dave Franco yell is just very like, like you don't even really have to see his face to know that it's him in any situation.
Yeah.
But then yeah, Anthony Mackie ends up being a big part of this episode has probably for me the funniest moment in the episode, which is spoiler alert ahead, but when he has meets with Seth Rogen's character and everybody else privately, and he's like, "I also want that part of the movie cut." Like he's like, "I do not like that shit."
And I know, like, kind of the at the end of the movie, Ron Howard, end of the movie, at the end of this episode of
Show,
television,
yeah,
Ron Howard kind of gives in to the idea where it's like, yeah, it is the right decision to cut it. But I listen, I haven't seen the movie, but I'm kind of like, wait, that looks kind of sick though. When you, it's like a
yeah,
metaphor, and it's like really long, and it's like
right,
at the
yeah.
end
It
of
is the
this
kind of
action
thing that we
movie,
probably
I'm like,
like,
wait, that looks
yeah.
kind of cool though. That
Which,
looks
like, it brings me to the other point that I was going to make about not only does it line up with real life in that the directors are relevant, but also it feels like, and I said this last week, but what I was talking about last week is that every topic feels like conversations that we have constantly, like turned into like skits, or in this case, like episodes of television. And it's funny how much like this very clearly feels like the themes of the episode just align with The Brutalist, which just like performed at
yeah,
the Oscars not that long ago. It's
yeah.
like they're talking like the two big ideas of the episode are, is this movie too long? And should the director get final cut? Big part of Brady Corbay's speech was obviously about getting final cut. That was like a thing that on the award circuit he talked about often. And then obviously the big conversation around The Brutalist was like, is this movie too long? And obviously that is like what led to people speculating about its Oscar performance, and then and so on, is like, oh, maybe a bunch of people in the Academy actually didn't watch this movie because it's too long. And so
And also, not to suck the brutalist stick, a movie that we both really like. I don't know, whatever. It doesn't mean, but like also like critics and stuff. Not even just critics, like fake faux critics, like people online and stuff. They were
sure.
people talking about like, man, this the second half kind of drags. It's kind of boring. And also like the epilogue, they didn't need to do that at all. They could just cut out the epilogue. You know what I mean? And this whole episode's about like it's basically the epilogue of the
Yeah,
movie is what they're talking like of the fake Ron Howard movie. They're like they need to
yeah,
get rid of this epilogue. That's like the whole
right.
what the whole thing's about.
No, yeah, and that's
Yeah.
why I was like the whole time I was watching it, I was like, oh, they're just this just is the brutalist conversation. And so it's like so well timed because the Oscars were just a few weeks ago. Um Obviously the other side of it is that any of this will probably be well timed because all the conversations they're having are going to be relevant to anything going on in Hollywood. Like at any point that an episode is released, we're going to be not too far separated from some event in the filmmaking world that aligns with that episode. But still, that is like kind of the appeal as well, is that like there's going to be an applicable example for every episode that we watch most likely, and these are all conversations that we're interested in, which last week I was like, "Oh, I don't know if this is going to totally be a good thing." Like that seems kind of annoying to me, but now I'm like, if I laugh through every episode and I agree with the things that they're saying, how annoyed can I get, really? Like that's like it's pretty solid TV from that perspective. So I guess I really like, I don't know, it's like this weird mix of where I'm worried that I don't know if the show is going to get me all the way to the end. Like I don't know if I'm going to
Right.
get tired of the thing that they're doing, but at the same time, I definitely see the appeal of the thing that they're doing, and it's not like I'm finding it any less funny. Like the whole time I
Right.
was like, that's the big thing, is that it is a comedy show, and I did laugh this entire episode. So like how much can I really complain? I think in one way it's even like you're going to be more lenient on comedy television than I am dramatic television, because it's so much easier for me to come back every week to watch a 30-minute comedy show. I don't know.
It is okay. So I was thinking about, especially me, who I don't watch a lot of serialized anything really, like TV or anything. Um, so and watching this episode earlier today, I was really thinking about it. This thing that you're talking about, and I was thinking about this TV show and how it's something that I just like don't normally watch, and I was like, man, it's not at least on like an episode by episode basis so far, it is not like a major work. Like like how, granted, we haven't watched the show. I'm never gonna watch the show probably. Like how people talk about Severance being like, oh, it's like a major work of, art or whatever. That's like not
Yeah.
what this is on an episode by episode basis. It's not like or even something like The Pit where it's like really gripping and like propulsive and it's like, oh, I need to see what happens next. This is like
Yeah.
this is so chill. It's so like low commitment and it's kind of like, I'm gonna be honest. It's like slop for people like you and me. It's like slop
Yeah.
for like cinephiles that know who Ron Howard is and know what Ron
Yeah.
Howard looks like. um,
Yeah, I mean that is it's like it's ultimately, and I think this is interesting because like it's not.
this is our Marvel TV show. This is our Loki.
Yeah, and it's not any different than like what I was saying about Entourage, which is that like the reason why I liked that show so much growing up, like that show really hooked me in high school because it was in high school that I decided that like I want to work in the film industry. And so like a show that's all about the film industry, I was like, "Oh, of course I'm going to be attached to this." And now this is like essentially the same thing. It's like, "Oh, it's a show about the film industry." Obviously, I think this is a little bit different of a perspective because that was like that show was the, I mean, obviously it's there's drama and conflict or whatever, but essentially the appeal of something like Entourage is that like it's fun because you're watching this actor get to be rich and famous and party and like do like it's like the glamour of Hollywood. And this is just like the complete opposite where it's like, oh, this is everything that could go wrong and this is like everything that's like bad about making movies, as from our perspective as people who want to be the ones making them, and not like studio heads, because we're just
right,
we're in on the process, and the process is
right.
like, oh, that makes you feel like shit if you're somebody who has aspirations of being a director or a writer or whatever. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It's interesting from that perspective because I kind of care a little bit more about the drama aspect of it. Um, yeah, like I'm more interested in Entourage. It's like I'm interested because these are like dudes having fun. This is like pertains to me a little bit more. Um,
Yeah, I wonder. Maybe I will feel a lot more positively and more like emotionally invested in our characters at the end of this 10 episode season where we have more of the side characters kind of like develop and really show their personalities
yeah,
and have like really more like character defining moments, because as it stands right now it's like, okay, Seth Rogen's kind of a dumbass playing, and then like everybody else are just also dumbasses orbiting around Seth Rogen, and
yeah,
that's like the whole show right now, and it's like
yeah, and
fine,
I
it's like
wonder if they're
entertaining
gonna
enough, but
do. I wonder if they're gonna do the thing that most shows do, which is like one-off character-focused episodes. It's like one episode that is just about this character or whatever at some point, which like I wouldn't be opposed to. I think especially this episode, like another thing I noticed. Obviously, I really liked Anthony Mackie and Ron Howard as like the guest stars of the episode, but I said that Catherine Hahn won me over a little bit more this episode. I also thought that Chase Sui Wonders was like
yes, I
funnier this
was looking for her
episode.
name. I
I was
agree.
I was like, people are starting to win me over a little bit more with pretty small moments. Because the only like side character that immediately won me over in the beginning was Ike Barinholtz because he was the biggest one. He had and he still to this point has had the most screen time of the supporting cast. But like now, this was the first episode where Chase Sui Wonders actually like got to got to do enough for me to
Yeah,
care.
and that's what
and
I was kind of
and
yeah, getting at.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like, so yeah, maybe a couple more moments like that week over week, I will care by the end a little bit. Um,
And then it becomes
the
more
other
of a,
thing is like I I don't know that I feel like as I start to care more about the supporting cast, I'm going to care less about Seth Rogen because he is just like so repeatedly every week like fumbling this and being awful at it. And
no,
so
it's
far it's with
literally,
very little repercussions that like you know what I mean? It's like I'm not really going to care because like he did the Scorsese thing and now like we just move on. And now he's like and especially because of what you said, which is the ending of this episode is Ron Howard like agreeing. And I really did not like, I thought we might just get a 10 episode season where the end of every episode is like he fucked up again. But like, third episode, we finally, we hit one. Like he's good. He's in the clear, at least until next week. So I don't know. It's interesting, but it feels like the Scorsese failure would have some greater impact, and then the greater impact is just that we move on to the next thing, and so on. So I don't. At some point, I'm sure that'll bite him in the
Yeah,
ass.
but
But
like he's I think that it kind of like it's hard to understand, not understand. It's hard to keep it in the front of your head what his position is in the universe of the studio because he's
yeah,
playing such an incompetent like dumbass, but like
yeah,
he's the head of a major studio like
yeah,
Paramount or Warner Brothers, like something like
right.
that, like
Like he's not. Yeah,
so insanely important, right? Like
yeah.
such like one of the most important roles in all of the business, you know.
Yeah. So it's not
um
like he's just gonna like fail immediately or anything. Like it's not like he's just gonna disappear.
yeah,
Um,
it's crazy. um
yeah. Did you have anything specifically about this episode, plot wise or like scene wise, that you wanted to mention? Anything that
Yeah,
stood
well,
out?
like I wanted to say like the Chase Sui Wonders thing that you pointed out where she had like more character moments in this episode. And so what I keep thinking of, it's a cartoon so it's different, but this is kind of like a live action cartoon. But
A little bit, yeah.
Bob's Burgers is like my favorite TV show, right? It's like that's not like a drama series. It's my favorite comedy series, right? And I really love Bob's Burgers. And I think that what I really have a what why Bob's Burgers works for me so specifically is because the characters are so clearly defined, and like I kind of see a piece of of like life and the human experience in every character, you know? And it's like I wonder if we get like more, because right now all of the characters in the studio are very samey. They all like have like the same motivation and kind of like the
Yeah.
same thoughts and opinions basically.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we're gonna get like more kind of like really like character definition as we go on through the season, or if it's gonna
Right.
we're gonna lack some dynamics here in the cast, you know.
Yeah.
But
Well, no, it's a good point because like she's also one of the only characters who like really has a ton to gain in that like Catherine Hahn is the marketing person. So like she's not
yes,
moving. Ike Barinholtz not moving because the only role that is above his is Seth Rogen's, and Seth Rogen just got that job. So Ike
yeah,
Barinholtz, like he's not moving on anywhere on the ladder. And so like Chase Sui Wonders actually has like stuff at stake. Like it's like her performance in the show, it can directly affect her position at the studio. Um, so I do think moving forward, she could be one of the most interesting characters. And I thought, like, yeah, like you said, I thought it was fun that like that she was like, I'll do it. Like nobody wants to do it, I'll do it. And then she changes her mind.
well,
And
because
even
like
Anthony
Anthony
Mackie
Mackie
ends
shows
up
up.
doing it later. Yeah, Anthony
Yeah,
Mackie shows up, but then even Anthony Mackie does it later, where he's like, "Yeah, I'll get your back," and then he just like goes against Seth Rogen immediately when they're in the meeting. I thought was funny. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a good episode. I still think so far episode 2 is my favorite, just because like the chaos of it I think is the most appealing to me. But this one definitely uh it like is keeping the train moving for me. I don't know.
I
It seems
guess.
like this is your favorite one.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is. I guess like if I were to be kind of like put on a real critic hat and like be and try to like speak a little bit more with a little bit more authority, I episode 2 is like the most concise kind of like, it has a bookend, right? It's
Yeah.
like it's a very much a bottle thing. It's the most concise, like well thought out episode so far. But there's moments in the first episode that I really like a lot, but overall I think this is my favorite of the three. And really it's because it's like slop, it's like, oh, I like
Yeah.
Ron Howard, and it's about, and it's kind of like that brutalist
Well, I
conversation,
think
it's about
it's
Final
it's
Cut, and
also
it's like,
you're like in a little bit more too. You know what I mean? Because Martin Scorsese has like such wide appeal that like people who don't even really know anything about movies or even can like, and this isn't like a diss on them, but like can even like pretty easily pose as movie lovers by just like only having seen Scorsese's movies or something, or like or even only seeing like his daughter's TikToks. Like it's like,
right.
he's at a completely different level than Ron Howard, to where it's like, oh, this is like the like now we're getting to the point where the explanations of who the people are actually matter for a large chunk of the audience. Like when he is explaining why Martin Scorsese is important in the first episode, nobody watching is like, "Wow, thanks for that information." But like now, some people at home, unless these are people above the age of like 40, but like but a lot of younger people at home watching the show are going to be like, I actually needed that information. Like otherwise I would have Googled Ron Howard. And so like when we get to that point with like those kinds of directors, it gets a little bit fun. I mean, uh even when they were talking with Nicholas Stoller in the first episode, that's like a different thing entirely. Where it's like you hear Nicholas Stoller's name, and some people might hear that name and know who that is immediately, but like a lot of other people needed him as a writer or director explained to them. So I think that side of it is more fun moving forward when we get kind of like these guest stars that are definitely famous in Hollywood, but you have to be like you have to know what you're watching to get it, because then it's like then it does become slop for us in that way, like that we're part of the in group, and we get to talk about it like in the same way that people who read comic books talk about the MCU.
Right,
Like we could
exactly.
kind of like we could talk to other people and be like, oh, you don't know who Ron Howard is, and you
No,
can't
yeah,
really do
this
that with
is
Scorsese or whatever.
yeah, this is a real Hollywood like slop. Like fans of like Hollywood movie, like broadly, fans of
Yeah,
like Hollywood movies slop. And I'm gonna, listen, I'm not immune. I think it's entertaining now. Yeah.
yeah,
Um
no, I agree.
so
um
it looks like next episode, I'm looking ahead on IMDb. Have you do you know anything about it yet?
I do not, but you can tell me.
It looks like next episode we have some guest characters, including Zac Efron and Olivia
Oh fuck
Wilde
yeah.
playing themselves. Um,
Okay, this is good. So do you think Olivia Wilde's gonna be the director? I
um,
wonder, because this is a very
okay,
new director. But I guess they would.
maybe.
I guess they would have some new directors.
So it
Maybe
like
were.
there's one still image that I'm looking at, and it's Olivia Wilde looking very upset at not upset like angry, but upset just like generally distressed at Seth Rogen, and uh the one line description is or the one line synopsis is: a reel of film goes missing, sending Matt and Sal on a race against the clock to find it. And Matt is Seth Rogen's character. I don't know who Sal is. Um,
I think that's like
oh,
Barinholtz.
yeah, Ike Barinholtz. Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
maybe,
Okay.
yeah, interesting.
No, I mean, I definitely, I think that's also like a pairing that just makes sense. Like Zac Efron in an Olivia Wilde movie would not totally surprise me. I thought the Anthony Mackie Ron Howard thing was funny because I was like, oh, this is such a like random two people that they put together. I don't know,
Well,
only because the way that they were talking about it was like they were like, go get your Oscar, Anthony Mackie, and I was like, is that like a thing that would be happening?
yeah, I don't know.
Like Anthony
It
Mackie
is
winning Best
interesting.
Actor for the new Ron Howard movie.
Well, yeah, they were saying like legendary filmmaker Ron Howard, and like when they
And they were
that's why I was
referencing A Beautiful Mind from 2001.
yeah, and that's why they when
um,
they brought up that's why I brought up earlier like Ron Howard auteurism, because it's like that's a real discussion people have, because he's not like an auteur. When people talk about auteurs, they talk about Paul Thomas Anderson, like in terms of in
sure.
America at least, not
Yeah.
talking about European filmmakers, but like Paul Thomas Anderson, even like Zack Snyder, more so like people
Yeah.
with like really singular visions, and like all of their
Yeah.
films
Ron
have like,
Howard, not often
and Ron Howard's
mentioned
not like
directly.
that.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. It's
It
very
is
funny. And it's like,
interesting,
I know. Yeah. And then they do the Beautiful Mind thing over and over again. And the other thing is like,
which I guess is
technically,
his
I
most
mean,
popular movie.
yeah, but, Frost
No 13
Nixon, I think
Lives
came out.
mentioned.
No 13 Lives mentioned, but Frost Nixon came out later than A Beautiful Mind. And that was like an Oscar movie too. But that also came out in like 2008. So it's like it's still funny to be like, yeah, go get your Oscar, Anthony Mackie. It's like
Well, yeah,
I
and
don't know
Anthony
that I
Mackie,
don't know how
who is
much
like
Oscar pull Ron
MCU
Howard has
guy.
right now. Yeah, but so was Sebastian Stan. I think any of these people could very easily like
Yeah,
fix
Anthony
their image
Mackie.
by just working with one real director.
Yeah,
um
Anthony Mackie, really good
and
actor though. He's
yeah, no,
very funny
I
in this
like him a
episode.
lot.
I didn't think
No,
he was
I
going to
thought
show
yeah,
up
I thought
as
he was
yeah.
like the standout of the episode. Or I guess technically Ron Howard, but they could share the prize.
Last thing I want to say before I know you're trying to wrap up.
No, you're good.
At the end of this episode, there's a big freak out like fight that Seth Rogen and Ron Howard get into, which was like so unexpected that it like that Ron Howard like blew up. But again, it was like it's a punchline to a setup that earlier in the episode
Happens
where they
earlier
go,
about him being nice and like
yeah.
yeah.
But then like it happened. This happened in the second episode, but it's Seth Rogen is falls over some fucking shit and breaks glass and makes a huge mess, like he does in the second episode.
Yeah, he's very
Um,
clumsy.
yeah, that
But
was
they're
so
very good. No,
funny.
I thought the fight was really funny. Like I do think just strictly in terms of like success as a piece of comedic television, the show is extremely successful. I think there are, there's other stuff for us to discuss moving forward, but I have yet to like watch an episode and be like, "Oh, this isn't funny." Like I've been laughing through most of the episodes. So that's a good sign so far. Yeah, but like Doug said, we could wrap up there and talk about episode 4 next week, I guess. So we'll see you later. Bye.